Hola a todas, Caro here, continuing our convo as we await returns tonight. I am especially excited to be joined by Yuseli with the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. You're based in Wisconsin, Yuseli, one of the 7 key battleground states at play in this election. So I'll toss it to you for a quick intro, and then we can jump straight into what you're witnessing on the ground.
Gracias. Hola, buenas noches a todos. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Yuseli Flores. I work at Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. We're a political watchdog group that for the last 30 years has tracked money in politics in Wisconsin. We are a key battleground state that has dealt with a lot over the last couple elections. Right now, Wisconsin has a constitutional amendment on the ballot, which is intentionally divisive that I'd love to cover. I'm also wearing a second hat as the co-organizing director with the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition. So after the election, we're going to have a lot of work to do and a lot of organizing to do. So I have some updates for you all then too.
Awesome. Gracias, Yuseli. So, just to jump straight into it, can you describe the energy, the mood on the ground today? What are you hearing from your compas, from voters, and community members as they head to the polls today?
Yeah, claro que sí. Well, we're doing our best to support folks on the ground. We have some great election protection and election observing programs going on. Earlier today, we had a Latino polling, primarily Latino polling site that had no Latino or Spanish speaking poll workers. So we made sure to mobilize some language access and some Spanish speaking poll workers that way. We've been dealing with some limited intimidation tactics by folks in terms of um, somebody having a tie-dye umbrella and being minimized for wearing tie-dye. It's tough out here. Wisconsin is a crucial state that we know will determine the election, and therefore we are ready for it. We are really close in proximity to central count, so we will have some observers there as well to making sure that our elections are safe and every single vote cast is counted.
Thank you, Yuseli. So, for those of us who are watching, from across the country, from Puerto Rico, from other parts of the world, who may not be as familiar with Wisconsin, can you tell us a little bit about the Latina community there? What are some of the community's main concerns and priorities, and how are Latina voters getting involved and engaged in this election?
Claro que sí. Well, 14 years ago, we lost driver's licenses and we lost in-state tuition for undocumented youth in this state, closer to 2008, 2009. So a lot of people that are voting this election cycle are carrying that right in their minds as they're voting. They are carrying the beautiful state that is the state that represents a lot of us here, regardless of where we live in Wisconsin, who we worship, what we look like. We all want a beautiful Wisconsin that represents us. And I think a lot of people are carrying that, especially the Latino community. My favorite fun fact is that every 30 seconds, a Latino in the US turns 18. And so in Wisconsin, that is what we know is going to be changing and be what drastically will affect this election. We're relying on the Latino youth vote and the power of young people.
So, speaking of this election in particular, and with your work with the Fair Maps Coalition, this is Wisconsin's first election under the new redistricting maps this year. So, how does that impact the state of politics in the state, and
Yeah.
especially for Latina and marginalized communities who have been kept out of the conversation for so long because of those restrictive,
Yeah.
lines that were drawn up?
That is a great question. So, yeah, to give you all a little bit of background, the last time that we had nonpartisan maps was the 70s. And so, this is an opportunity to finally give people some competition. This is the opportunity for people that look like me, that look like us, to run for office and have a fighting chance. The governor signed his maps into law in this February. So we had an opportunity to get a taste of what nonpartisan redistricting will look like. So following the election, we are pushing the Fair Maps Coalition is supporting a nonpartisan redistricting commission. So we are hoping to have a constitutional referendum on the 2026 ballot, and then on the 2028 ballot, hopefully we'll have an amendment. So Wisconsin will finally have a nonpartisan redistricting commission and no longer rely on the assembly to draw their maps.
Thank you for sharing. So, amidst all of that work that's happening on the ground, I'm curious if there's been like one memorable moment that stood out to you, whether it's, being on the ground, speaking to folks, or whether it's like seeing the direct like impact of the work. So,
Right.
if you'd like to share just a memorable moment that stands out to you ahead of this election.
We are obviously still finding ways to bring joy to the work. So I am part of a wonderful coalition of organizations that are part of the Wisconsin Voting Rights Group and efforts here in the state. And so we all got to be in community together. We're being intentional about sharing space with one another, seeing each other outside of Zoom, getting to just sit in the joy for a little bit before the real work starts. I also had the privilege of leading my last canvas this earlier today around 2 p.m. and it's a canvas led by young students from our technical college, and they, we said our last goodbyes before launching our canvas and then going our separate ways. So we're hitting doors in hard-to-reach communities, and we got to just share some moments of gratefulness for the work, and we get to wake up tomorrow and try to do it all over again.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you're centering joy in the midst of all of the work. One final question from us, la última preguntita. How can folks, follow the work that you're doing? Are there any social media plugs that you would like to share? How can they continue to support you in your work?
Yeah, I think all eyes are in Wisconsin, so please continue looking out for the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. My work starts tomorrow after running all of the campaign finance numbers, and so if folks are into data like me, definitely keep an eye out for the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign as well as the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition. This work is never ending. Wisconsin has an election every single year for the next 7 years. So we will continue to make sure people go out and vote and participate civically if they can.
Gracias, Yuseli. And thank you to everybody who is tuning in, who has been tuning in throughout the day. We hope that these conversations shed light on what's at stake for our gente and all of the amazing and empowering work that's happening on the ground. So gracias a ti, Yuseli. Keep following throughout the day and evening as we continue to bring you perspectives from the ground. So gracias todas for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.
Gracias.